When I was 8, I was required to clean bricks on church property. Jehovah's Witnesses don't like to be known as a church, but they are. They just call them kingdom halls, as I'm sure you know, and they did a lot of quick builds on their building sites. We, as children, cleaned bricks, did gardening, childminding, and another aspect of the construction was I was helping my dad road build. And there's actually pictures and videos of us doing that and other children in the background. And as I've tried to explain this to people, more and more are coming forward because they didn't recognize it, and now they are.
It's a critical component to mind control. Being made over to be clones of the person who's at the top of the pyramid. Interested in the subject because of my own cult involvement. I was recruited in 1974 into a front group of the Moonies.
Welcome to Cults, Culture, and Coercion, exposing extremism and harmful people to help everyone understand today's cults, manipulation, and undue influence. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Hassan. Please like and subscribe and share this to support our valuable work. Today's guest, Lara Kaput, is a prominent Australian activist and whistleblower reporting on the Jehovah's Witnesses, otherwise known as the Watchtower Society. For 8 years, she's provided testimony and submissions to governments, law enforcement, royal commissioners concerning the Watchtower Society. She's a co-founder of the advocacy group Say Sorry and former vice president of the Secular Association of New South Wales. She's also collaborated with survivors around the world and has made appearances in German, French media, I'm sure the UK, and other places. And I'm really excited to finally meet you and to get you to share your story with my followers.
Thanks, Steve. And it's great that after a year of trying, we've gotten together and finally met each other. So it's great.
Yeah, and hopefully one day in person. That would be cool. So I just want to start by saying when I wrote Combating Cult Mind Control in 1988, based on my Mooney experience, I didn't think the Jehovah's Witnesses were a cult. It was not on my radar, and former Bethel elder Randall Waters sent me a long letter, what's now known as snail mail, because this was back in 88, before the internet. And he said, loved your book, underlined the whole thing, but how come you didn't mention the Jehovah's Witnesses? And I got his phone number, called him up. I said, tell me why I should have mentioned them. He said, you described the whole thing. And I said, teach me. And he said, come to LA. I've got a group of former members, and you'll teach and we'll teach you. And so I've been learning about this organization and speaking out since 1989. So I have knowledge about it, but I'm not sure the public really still gets, because the people are so nice and they're on the street corners. And I'll just add before you start talking, I was just visiting an ex-Mooney friend of mine in the Canary Islands of Spain. And there were 3 witnesses on the street. So we decided we would do a mini intervention. And my friend is more fluent in Spanish than me. So we got to say some things and plant a few seeds, because I really believe people want to know the truth. They're sincere followers, but they're so brainwashed by the organization that, these people did not believe there was a pedophile problem with the Watchtower. They were clueless about, the origins of the organization and the problems. So I gave them each my card, and we'll find out. But thank you for letting me do an intro for my audience to the Watchtower. Lara, tell us your story. You were born and raised in the group, or what?
Yes, let me just take a slight sidestep, Steve.
Sure.
I'm not sure if you've heard, but my condolences to Randy's family and friends, because he recently passed away.
I did not know.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to tell you that.
I'm turning 72, and a lot of my close friends have passed away, and I'm just very grateful that my health is good. and I can keep doing the work that I'm doing because it's helping so many people. But no, I was not aware of that. And he was very influential in my education. I know he had a ministry where he was using Christianity to help people understand how this wasn't following the Bible. I talked with Ray Franz, who wrote The Crisis of Conscience. He was a governing body member, and etc. So anyway, thank you for telling me that.
Well, he left an incredible legacy, didn't he?
Exactly.
So thank you to him, and yeah, condolences again. I'm sorry, you asked me the question. How old was I when I left?
Well, you were born and raised in the group, first of all, or
I
not?
was, yes. So I'm a first-generation Australian in my family. My mother's family had joined the Jehovah's Witnesses in Germany, and my father's family were Polish and Ukrainian. And after the Second World War, both of those families came here, and my father joined the Jehovah's Witnesses here. So they met at what's called a circuit assembly, which you've probably heard of.
Yes, I have. I've talked to former circuit overseers, in fact, who've left.
Yes. And so they met that way, and I think they married 6 months later, which is what everybody did back then. And so then we were all raised inside it, including the generation before them. So really I was third generation, and I'm a little bit different to other people in that I didn't really believe it. I mean, some of it did get through to my subconscious, obviously, but I was a born atheist. So yeah, I left as soon as I could, which was age about 19.
Yeah, and I've met other people like you who just never believed. That always didn't make sense to them, but they had to be obedient. They were corporally punished. They were shown all the fear stuff from Armageddon. And but that's fascinating. So you become an activist. So tell us more.
Yes.
I really want to educate my followers more about this group, which is international.
Yes. Okay. So I have got, I guess, everybody's got a similar story, but we're all slightly different. So what happened to me is from the age of 19 when I left, and the way that I precipitated the leaving was that I was invited to go to a judicial committee meeting, which, as you know, has 3 elders. And I had been caught with an elder's son doing something that's not a crime. And for nearly a third of a century now, I've been punished for that because I got disfellowshipped. I decided I did not want to attend such a meeting. I was terrified of that, certainly not by myself. So I took it as the opportunity to leave. But the real reason was really that I thought, how can I get out? They're so hypocritical and so why do they hate children and women? And the misogyny was just so
misogynist, strong. I was going to say.
Yeah.
But were you also corporally punished? Because they beat children in this group.
Nearly every day, yes.
Yeah, and it's traumatic. And I have a psychiatrist friend who says it creates brain trauma in children to be hit in any way, shape, or form. He's against even spanking with an open hand, much less with a paddle or a belt or other things.
Well, I've seen people train their dogs without having to use their hand, just with instruction. So some parents do that. And my mum in particular has learned there's another way to raise children. But I've heard you say on previous interviews, other people tell you that, and you say I've heard that a lot. So you've also heard it from Australia. It's the case. It's global, and there's a cookie cutter approach.
Yeah, and they, like many other cults, they treat children like they're adults instead of realizing it's healthy for children to play. It's healthy for children to fidget. It's normal to expect them to spend hours in the Kingdom Hall and be quiet and sit properly. is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I still can't do that as an adult. I still fidget as an adult. To get me to sit down for an hour is quite a feat, and
Yeah.
it's important. This is important, so I can do it. But then if I fast forward to the Royal Commission a decade ago, or more than a decade ago now. So basically, between leaving and the Royal Commission, I had nothing to do effectively with anything religious. Didn't see anything in the newspapers, didn't hear anything on the radio, and certainly didn't see anything on TV for all of that time, from the age 19 to, what am I now? 35 years or something like that, 33 years. So never noticed anything really until the Royal Commission a decade ago. Sorry, I've
The
got
Royal Commission in Australia into cults.
I just got my numbers. So the way that I found out about the Royal Commission is that I was sitting at a cafe reading the local newspaper, or the national newspaper actually, having a coffee. Coffee culture is really big in Melbourne. We've got Gold Star coffee. It's the best place for it. Yeah, you've really got to enjoy it when you get there.
Okay.
And when I was at this cafe, I just turned the paper with my cappuccino, put the cup to my lips, and suddenly there was it. There was the Jehovah's Witnesses right in the middle of the page, sort of thing. It just came out at me, Jehovah's Witnesses, and I'd never seen this before in the media. So instantly my eyes went to it, and it was advertising a Royal Commission. I still got the ad, small ad. It was advertising a Royal Commission. I recognized some other religions, but the Jehovah's Witnesses were included. I'd never seen that happen in my life anywhere. And I thought, this must be important. This is really special. I'm going to rush home and tell all my friends about it. That's what I did, and called my best friend. Luckily, she had already been across it. She'd already made a submission. So she was able to explain it to me. I was able to read about the terms of reference, and I was able to draft my own submission. And this was 1 month before submissions concluded in 2016.
So let me just ask, because my memory was that Barbara Anderson, who had been at Bethel with the headquarters, had discovered a file of over 35,000 names of pedophiles, people who were reported for abusing children sexually. And the cult has this policy that unless 2 people saw it, then it's not real, and they wouldn't report people to the police. And these individuals would be often in elders or other high-ranking people, and they'd just be reassigned and molest more kids. And so the Australian government, heard about this and wanted to know, are Australian citizens being sexually abused as children? Is that correct, or am I misremembering?
I think some of it's slightly different to your memory.
Okay.
I've heard you ask that before to Isaac, I think.
Okay.
So I think what happened was the 35,000 was a number that was collated together with Barbara by an Australian man called Stephen Unthank, who's based in Victoria, which Melbourne is the capital of Victoria.
Okay.
And I think it was Stephen Unthank who wrote to the Royal Commission and the Prime Minister, and perhaps even our Governor General, I can't recall, and requested that the Jehovah's Witnesses were included in the Royal Commission. And one thing that Isaac had highlighted was the Royal Commission wasn't for the Jehovah's Witnesses, it was for institutions. And the Jehovah's Witnesses were just one case study 29. They actually were alluded to also in case study 54 and 57. So there was a follow-up.
But the Children of God and Scientology, I think, may have been involved with that investigation too, or am I misremembering that?
I can't recall them in the Royal Commission. However, before the Royal Commission, it was preceded, the Royal Commission was federal, so the whole of Australia, national. But before the Royal Commission, there were Victorian inquiries into the handling of child abuse in religious organisations. Stephen Unthank appeared in that and wrote that inquiry. And there was another one as well, and he appeared in that. And so I really think it may have been Barbara as well, but it was certainly Stephen and his advocating back then that helped to get us into the Royal Commission. And I mean, someone must have helped, the General Counsel or counsel assisting to formulate their questions. I'm sure they get that out of thin air. They would have needed someone to work with them and devise those questions because it was extremely skillful.
Yeah. Well, I've been to Australia twice, and I've done workshops and lectures and been on, I think it's Four Corners, which was a very popular television show and such. But I also want to do a shout out to another Australian at the moment, Maria Esquera.
Yeah.
Is a psychologist, former Children of God, and she's now involved with a nonprofit. I've interviewed her, and she's really advocating for children not to be abused under the guise of religious freedom. And she's a powerful woman. She's amazing. I see you know her. Yes,
I do. I know a lot of the leaders in cult advocacy in Australia and in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
Maria and I knew each other before we attended the Decult conference in Christchurch in New Zealand. I think it was 1.5 or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so we knew each other before, and she was the one I was most looking forward to meet.
Yes.
We did meet there, and we've done work together since, and we often, like, maybe weekly, fortnightly, keep in touch, and she's incredible. And you'll see a lot of comments on her work by me and vice versa. So it's really nice. She's an incredible person.
Yeah, and you meet really wonderful people who are ex-member survivors. A lot of people leave groups and they're lonely, and you've been so programmed that the outside world is evil, and you meet these wonderful people.
You do. That's been the best thing about this. That's right. Yeah. And so back then during the Royal Commission, it was precipitated perhaps by the Victorian inquiries. And we had two before, then we had the Royal Commission, and now we've got a new Victorian inquiry into cults and fringe groups. So you will probably broadcast this in about August, and we're talking now in, what month is it? May.
Well, we're in May. We'll probably do it sooner than August. But
right. And then the results will come out in about September from that inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go to the website in Victoria and look at that current inquiry. It's too late to submit submissions, and it's too late to provide.
No, I think someone submitted my stuff. Maybe Maria or my friend Nigel Denning, who's a psychologist in Melbourne, who also knows about cults and such. But Australia, I just want to do a shout out because Australia has been one of the most caring about their citizens of all of the countries. And they even did an inquiry into Scientology, I believe, in 1965. And I read that report when it came out. And it was the first report that I saw of any official investigation that explicitly said Hubbard was a hypnotist, because he was, and talked about the use of hypnosis as part of the brainwashing and mind control. So kudos to Australia. And they did an assault rifle ban, unlike in the US where there are 19 million AR-15s, 19 million, and we have shootings every day.
Yeah.
Australia cares about their citizens and want to protect them. So at least relative to the other countries that I've been trying to get this work out. But back to you. Yes.
That's the benefit of being in a country that's new. We're only about 240 years old. So we've got the lessons learned from other countries. And the other thing is Victoria is a nanny state. And the benefit of being a nanny state is they do try to care for people. And so people can complain about a nanny state, but it's not a communist state. It's not a socialist state. It is, a democratic state, and sometimes is reigned by the Liberals and sometimes is reigned by Labor political parties, but it also has a healthy dose of Greens, and they each keep each other accountable. So that does work. Just a quick shout out to Nigel Denning. I met him once when he came to a public talk that Stephen Unpaid and I were giving, and we've been in contact ever since. So, yeah, I agree with you on these people that you're...
Yeah, Nigel and I share a mentor, Daniel Brown, who taught us both about doing attachment repair for adults. He was also a teacher of Tibetan Buddhist meditation. And Nigel is very knowledgeable and experienced with meditation and altered states. He's also been training clinicians regarding how to ethically utilize psychedelics to help with trauma victims and such. So yes, he's a good guy. He's been talking about bringing me down to record my work doing sessions as a training vehicle for other clinicians. So that's maybe in the future.
Well, please accept my invitation too. I'd love to help you to update your book when you need it next. I've got a lot we can add that we've uncovered.
Yeah, so we're going to do a blog based on this, and we can put links to everything that you think people need to know. And I just want to state for my listeners who may not be familiar, when you're walking down the street and you see a couple of people on a signboard and maybe some nice pictures, and maybe they're asking you about the purpose of life, or, what you want, how you think you can be happy. That's probably Jehovah's Witnesses who are doing their publishing. These are air quotes, my fingers. They have to do a certain number of hours every month to be in good standing with the organization. And you mentioned, I just want to circle back. You said you had a judicial committee because you did something that wasn't a crime. And I just want to say, people get disfellowshipped for celebrating a birthday of a non-member or visiting a church. You're not allowed to do that. Or wanting to get a blood transfusion because you're going to die without one. You'll get kicked out. Or kissing a guy without permission when you're, blah, blah, blah. So this is an authoritarian mind control group. And then the other thing I want to just mention is I was on the dissertation committee for a former witness, Lara, from Germany, Andre Jackson, who did a study on people leaving the headquarters because he was curious. How are people at the headquarters and what makes them leave and their process? So we have a recording with Andre as well.
And it's also a fantastic one, Steve, because my parents were both born in Germany. I do watch the German cult stuff. There is a German support group called JZ Help based in Berlin, but they look after people in Germany, Austria, Italy, and Switzerland. So,
great. So we're going to, in the blog that we put, we'll make sure we'll add a link. And we want everyone to know more. So yes, you were going to say?
Yeah. Sorry, there's two things you mentioned that have changed. You know how the Jehovah's Witnesses changed their doctrine?
Right.
So blood transfusions have changed.
Oh, tell me more.
So they're now allowing people to store their own blood for a blood transfusion.
Aha.
Very impractical. Won't necessarily save lives, but they've changed.
Right. Well, I think the last topic I covered in my blog was a 27-year-old JW, I think she was in Canada, who was giving birth and needed a blood transfusion, and she refused, and she died, and the child is motherless.
Yes.
And this is all made up from a misunderstanding of Torah, or the Old Testament, around kosher laws, around what you can eat and what you can't, because in Judaism you should drain the blood of animals before you eat them. And it wasn't even the founder that came up with this, but I think it was Rutherford or some of the following leaders and he was a real creep, Rutherford. He was, enjoying the finest cars and mansions and luxury items as he was condemning all Christianity. They're all rackets, but he had the truth. And he used radio, I believe, and phonographs to help recruit. We're talking about a group that has millions and millions of people around the world still.
Yeah, they say 9 million. We say that there's a lot that's left. 2/3 generally leave. There's one other thing you mentioned before, but I couldn't remember because it's about 5 minutes ago. But that's also changed. I'm not sure if it was education that you talked about. They're now allowing people to get tertiary education.
Oh, okay.
And that's a recent change. It looks like they may allow. They've now adopted shunning light, which is that you can give a greeting to disfellowshipped or shunned people. That's hardly changed anything. You can also have a beard. You don't necessarily have to wear a suit. So things are changing because of people like you and I who keep advocating for change. So basically, when they get caught doing something in a court of law, they will change it.
The Mormons too. And my understanding is that some ex-JWs were suing under discrimination law. Was it in Norway or that it's anti-human rights to treat former members as less than. And so maybe that's where they were, okay, you can say hello,
Yes.
wave, but never have a real conversation with your mother, your father, your sister, or your brother.
That's exactly what we believe, and it looks like the judiciary's followed it.
Yeah. Yeah, so what I want to come back to is also false prophecy. This group has said that the world was coming to an end 4 times. The last time that I'm aware of was 75. I actually interviewed a circuit overseer from Italy who was in charge at that time. And I have a video of him on my YouTube channel. I'm forgetting his name, but he was in a Fortune 100 corporation doing quality control. But in the meantime, telling everybody in the group that the world's coming to an end, and God's going to remake everything. And he talked about how he didn't miss a step when the world didn't end.
Yes,
and people started getting angry at him. What are you talking about? But he finally left because he did realize. And the way people wake up often is learning about other cults like the Moonies.
Yes.
Like reading my book. And
that's right. There's a lot of people in Australia that thank you for your book because, in fact, if I just extend my story from before a little bit, the day that I realised that there was a Royal Commission and an avenue to report the Jehovah's Witnesses, I think within 1 month I realised they were a cult. And the reason why I realised is because a childhood former Jehovah's Witness friend said to me, would you like to join a support group? And I said, no, I don't need a support group. I'm okay. I'm not... I never believed it, so I'm okay. But then I changed my mind and I said, actually, can I join the support group? Because I think I can help other people. And that's what I've tried to do for 10 years. And I think within that 1 month, I remember walking back to the same cafe to have my morning coffee. And as I was about to cross the road and step out, it dawned on me, they're a cult. And that was you. That was you. And the simplicity of your model, it just kept going around in my head, behavior, information, thought, emotion, or environment.
Emotional control, the bite model.
And then it dropped. It literally dropped. I can remember the moment that I stepped off the pavement and said, right, I was in a cult. And I was, 45, something like that. So, we really, you're very popular in Australia and New Zealand. So, yeah.
And I'm celebrating my 50th anniversary, May 11th, of my family's intervention after I nearly died in a van crash due to sleep deprivation, of my waking up moment where I was like, Moon's a liar. Wait a minute. He's a liar. So how could he be a man of God? How can he be the Messiah? He's not trustworthy. And I had suppressed all these direct experiences where he was telling us leaders to lie to the members, to lie to the outside world, but it never connected with my real self.
Absolutely.
That this is wrong.
Yeah, they call it in the JWs, I'm sure you know the term, Theocratic warfare.
Thanks for reminding me, because I know transcendental trickery, heavenly deception, theocratic warfare, meaning the world is of Satan and we have to lie for God.
Yeah, and sometimes we call it spiritual warfare. The two things are the same.
Yeah.
Steve, so since then, basically what I've done is report crime. And I'd really like to give you a summary of the allegations that I've reported. Is now a
Please.
Yeah, I'm just going to read from my list because it's quite extensive and I'll miss something if I don't read from it.
That's fine.
So I've made about 30 submissions to governments or more actually now in about 10 countries. I've also met with, I think you said it in your intro, politicians, the media, and have been in various documentaries, including working with that group JZ Help that I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So the allegations that I've reported are historic and current local and international alleged crimes and non-compliance and human rights abuses. So one of the things you mentioned before in Norway may not be a crime, but it's non-compliance and a human rights abuse. And I know that they're trying to make shunning a crime, which would be fantastic. But I say that they are already doing unlawful things. So it's nice to have a new law, but let's get them on the other laws that I allege have been broken. So these abuses tend to be led by Jehovah's Witness leaders, and then they cascade down to the local leaders like overseers, and then they cascade down further to rank and file congregants. And they include things, and I allege that they include things like aiding and abetting, child sexual abuse, obviously, high incidence of domestic violence, intentional contract breaches, document forgery, evidence and records destruction, preventing democracy or our democratic rights to vote, for example, phoenixing their businesses, a multi-billion.
What is phoenixing our businesses?
Apologies. So phoenixing was when you shut down one company and start a new one. You know, the bird, the phoenix, sort of caught fire and sort of melted down, and then, it must have been another bird, came back as a phoenix. I think some Jehovah's Witnesses actually have a phoenix tattoo to symbolize that they've come back from the ashes, and they're now a colorful bird that can fly, somewhat like a dragon in a good way. So phoenixing is a known term in Australia where businesses are shut down deliberately, like voluntarily dissolved, and then they start a new one and brings across sort of all of the corporate knowledge and the customers, and it's basically the same thing. It's just got a new
So they
name.
shut down to avoid taxes, or because they're caught doing illegal things, or both?
All of these allegations that I'm telling you is why they phoenix, is what I believe. Yes, but thank you for asking, because I didn't realize people wouldn't know, but please Google it.
New term for me. I love to learn.
That's great.
Please continue with the list. This is great.
So all of this incorporates also a multi-billion-dollar global liquidation of their properties. And I say that that's financial fraud. Or I allege that that's been financial fraud, and I don't know if we'll have enough time, but I can certainly tell you about it when you visit. They also, I allege, have modern slavery, and I'd love to talk more about that in this if we've got time.
Labor trafficking, yes.
Not just labor, but also forced marriage and child labor.
Yes.
So we can come back to that. They also pervert the course of justice. They have a high incidence of poverty, and they manipulate privacy provisions. So they are the things that I've been working on for the last decade. And it's sort of been like a growth for me. Like I knew about this and then I found out about that. And then I uncovered more information and I found out about the next thing, virtually from visiting other whistleblowers, connecting with other survivors. I'm one of 5 people in my family that alleges that we have had institutional child sexual abuse to 4 different separate Jehovah's Witness adult men.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not the only thing, though. These other things, particularly the modern slavery, I think, is really holding people back. But I've also got a list, Steve, when you're ready, of all the things that I think make Jehovah's Witnesses and cults different, some things you might not have considered before.
Well, I want you to do that. But first, let me just say, as a New Yorker from Queens, the Jehovah's Witnesses for a really long time had their headquarters in Brooklyn, this massive building. That's where Bethel was. That's where Randall Waters was in charge of their printing and their distribution of their magazine Awake, etc. And they moved upstate New York, where they sold the building for many millions of dollars, I believe, to Jared Kushner. I could be wrong, but they moved upstate to a compound, basically, where they could really control information in a way that it was much harder to do in the city of Brooklyn, the sub-city of Brooklyn in New York City. And I've also just want to say, I was aware that after the pedophile exposure, New York passed a law where people, even though individuals who were harmed passed the statute of limitations, they made a provision, I think it was for a year, where you could submit a claim that you were sexually abused in the cult, is on my memory.
Yeah, would you like me to expand?
Please.
Yeah, okay.
Of course, teach us, please.
Yeah, I'd be happy to tell you because a lot of people don't know this story. So about 7 years ago, I supported financially a document to be produced with Barbara Anderson by Stephen Unthank and Barbara.
Okay.
And that was to start the, what's it called, grand jury in Pennsylvania. So Stephen worked on a document with Barbara for a year to create for Barbara to make a complaint to New York because she's a New Yorker.
Mm-hmm.
And the politician in Pennsylvania found out about it, the state governor, I think it is, who was working with Marcy, something like that. And she runs childabuse.org or something like that.
It's childusa.org. I'm in touch with her recently, and she's now moving on. She's no longer the CEO of it. She's working on a book and a Substack and is continuing her good work. But back to you.
Yeah, so what we did at the time is Stephen Unthank went and did some lobbying over there, and I couldn't leave because I started a new job. But I helped to support his trip so that he did a lot of lobbying. And he was letting me know what was happening on a day-by-day basis. So I know where he went and who he spoke to, and he did an incredible job. So Marcia has a heat map of the entire USA, all of the states, and where they work to try and abolish the statute of limitations, not just extend it, but abolish it. And he worked to help get a law, was it California he worked in, and also Pennsylvania, to try and get the statute of limitations changed. Anyway, he can tell you in a podcast. But yes.
But because the headquarters were New York, my recollection was that anyone abused anywhere in the cult could submit a claim in New York, because that's where the corporation was based.
I think you're right. And Pennsylvania started the grand jury. So it was Barbara and Stephen Unthank's document that started the grand jury, because once they got their hands on the paper and read all about it. That's where the number comes from, I believe. You mentioned 35,000. It's about that, and that's in the paper, and you can read about that online on saysorry.org, and I'll send that through to Spike.
Say it one more time.
It's saysorry.org, and if you go to
Say story.
No, sorry, let me spell it for you. It's my accent. SAYSORRY.
Saysorry.org. Got it.
Yes, I've got a Melbourne accent. Sorry about that.
Don't apologize for your accent. I just want my listeners, they're like, what was that again? And I want them to not have to go, how do I track this down? Saysorry.org. Go on, please.
If you go to the library there, or is it under library, or is it under submissions? Something like that. You will find a lot of Stephen's and mine's and my own submissions, and most of the topics I've sort of described to you with the crimes and so on are listed there. And if you can't find them there, you can certainly find them on my LinkedIn profile. But I'll send them along to Spike so that she's got that she has sort of the links to enable people to find them. So yes, we can certainly.
Yeah, that's my goal, is to create a resource center where if people need information, they can find out what are the big resource places and websites and such. So
yeah,
that's great. It's fine. Everything's good. So, did you finish the list of criminal activities that you've been shining a light on with the Jehovah's Witnesses for my listeners?
I did. And I would love to go back and talk about modern slavery in the context of the allegations about the Jehovah's Witnesses. Or I'd love to talk to you about why I think cults are different to religions, and particularly the Jehovah's Witnesses. And
I want to hear both of those, but I also, before you start, the Jehovah's Witnesses, I know this from my experience. If somebody left the witnesses, a parent, and there were children, they would be coaching the member who is still in how to make false allegations against the ex-member parent. So they were doing parental alienation at an international scale to disrupt the normal bonds that children need. They want their mom and their dad in their life. And so they were literally coaching with custody cases, and there was a whole manual of teaching.
That's right.
And because I do forensic, coaching and such to teach lawyers, here's a group that was systematically, encouraging members to lie in order for their own benefit. And it's horrible.
Yes, that's correct. And I remember you discussing that with someone else in an interview, and you said you're not sure if it's current. I can tell you I actually downloaded that for my latest submission to the cult inquiry, and it was still on their website. That coaching book, if you like, was still on their website. And you can find that there's a link to it in my cult submission. It's about 100 pages, but you can just search for child custody, I think, in my submission and find it. Or it is on a website. Is it by
We'll put it all in the blog. You don't need to worry now, because people are probably driving in their car or whatever, listening. Maybe they're watching this. I'd love to hear about modern slavery and why they're not, how you understand why they're not a legitimate religion. I think those are the two things you were saying you wanted to speak about.
Right. Let me take you to the modern slavery. So I want to tell you, if it's okay with you, if I take a second to just pull up my modern slavery.
Of course.
Allegations.
While you're looking, I'll just say the Pope himself said he's apologizing for the Catholic Church's involvement in supporting slavery, which included all those religious schools with the doctrine of discovery from an earlier pope who said, go out, recruit the natives or capture their children, brainwash them, and kill anyone who doesn't go along with what we want to do. And the Pope publicly apologized, for their past involvement with slavery. The modern Pope, Pope Leo, the first American Pope, did that this week that we're recording it. And he also came out against AI, unregulated AI being a great danger. So even though I'm not really, a Catholic, I just, any moral voice talking about supporting rights, human rights, is really so needed.
I'm so happy to hear that. I did not know that. So thank you so much for telling me.
Sure.
The criticisms I've had in being part of a modern slavery lived experience team in Australia has been the fact that the Catholic Church is sort of embedded into advocacy for that. And I see a real due diligence issue in terms of there's a conflict of interest there that I see, and I'm very uncomfortable with that. So, yeah, it makes a difference that he said that. I'm happy.
He did.
Yeah. So, Steve, I found the types of labour. So let me take you through 8 types of labour that I have identified and alleged that the Jehovah's Witnesses are involved in. So let me read through that. I'll just give you a preface slightly before that, and that is that Australia had, the last 6 years, I think it is, a modern slavery commissioner, or an anti-slavery commissioner, rather. And in the UK, they have an anti-slavery commissioner. Our commissioner was state-based for New South Wales, and their commissioner was for London or national, I can't recall. But Australia is now ahead again, because we now have a federal or national anti-slavery commissioner. So I'm really proud of that. And they are now starting to speak out publicly, like in the last month or two, about cults and modern slavery. When I was first saying this about 7 years ago, everybody said that's bogus and it's not true. And now suddenly Children of God are saying it. Gloria Vale cult in New Zealand are saying it. Even a Mormon said it. And lots of other...
you mean ex-members are saying it?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
It's very important. But I for me, my dissertation was on trafficking law, which is slavery, labor and sex trafficking. But back to you.
I didn't know that. Thank you for telling me. I'll look it up after this. So my original submission years ago outlined 5 types of modern slavery. And since I've gotten to understand it, I've now got 8. So I'll take you through them.
Please.
So the first one is babysitting or child minding for other Jehovah's Witnesses. Mm-hmm. So that happened whether you were a child, a teenager, or what they call a mature minor, or an adult. You could be called on with no notice, and you didn't get paid for childminding or babysitting, even as a young child. So that's the first one. The second one is probably the biggest issue is, and I've just put these sort of in alphabetical order, construction labour, general construction labour. So, for example, when I was 8, I was required to clean bricks on church property. Jehovah's Witnesses don't like to be known as a church, but they are. They just call them kingdom halls, as I'm sure you know, and they did a lot of quick builds on their building sites. We, as children, cleaned bricks, did gardening, childminding, and another aspect of the construction was I was helping my dad road build. And there's actually pictures and videos of us doing that and other children in the background. Mm-hmm. And as I've tried to explain this to people, more and more are coming forward because they didn't recognize it, and now they are. So that's the second one, construction labour. The third one is cleaning properties. So we were on a roster for assembly halls, convention sites, and the kingdom halls or churches, and also were sometimes called upon to help other members clean their own properties, their personal properties. So cleaning, that's a big thing in the Jehovah's Witnesses, as you know, is something we're quite good at. The fourth one is, sorry, were you going to say something, Steve?
No, I'm just thinking of all the cults that did that with their kids, because it's really an epidemic. But please continue. This is great.
There's actually pictures of children cleaning properties on the jw.org website today. And I've taken them and So the thing that's changed is the number of hours that they have to do witnessing.
Oh, the publications or
Yes.
whatever.
So they
Yeah.
used to have a quota.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to submit your hours monthly, and then at the end of every month, it gets wiped. Your slate gets wiped clean, and you start all over again at zero.
Right.
But now there's no quota, and I think it's possibly because of our submissions that we've made on modern slavery. So the things I'm describing to you right now.
Yep.
Yep. So yeah, the fourth thing was food preparation at large meetings, even Kingdom Halls when we went out witnessing, but particularly assemblies and conventions. You may not know that you had to exchange your cash for tickets, and you use those tickets to buy food. And at the end of each sort of assembly or convention, rather, they would always cry poor and say, we haven't made enough money to cover the costs of this, and asked everyone to donate. But they were actually making a profit, is my understanding from those conventions, because they certainly haven't stopped them. Why would you continue to do them if you weren't able to recoup your costs? So, yeah, food preparation was a big thing with the girls in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And my father was, we're both scientists, my father and I. He was a biochemist and I was a chemist. And so he was called for food preparation. He actually knew a lot about the biochemistry of food. He ended up working for Heinz for 20 or 30 years.
Mm.
So we were directly involved, and he was advising for free on the temperature that you could keep food, for example, and what containers. I remember that. So the fifth thing is gardening, which I mentioned before. So gardening, and also, what do you call it when you redo an entire garden? You get diggers and help me with the word, garden design, the other thing. Anyway, you know what I mean?
I can imagine it's a version of renovation, but for gardens, that you're trying to till the land and fertilize and plant new crops or whatever.
Well, it's more garden design and then putting in the garden. It's killing me. It's 2 words and it's just on the tip of my tongue.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We get the point.
Well, the sad thing is I know someone who actually does that and they've got a beautiful garden. But as kids, we wouldn't be the designers, but we would be certainly digging the soil, putting in the plants, watering the plants, not paid for it and not asked if we wanted.
And you couldn't say no if an elder told you to do it. It was God's will, right?
Yeah. And if you didn't attend as parents, you'd be reproved or embarrassed in front of the congregation, and you'd be seen as not a high performer and be frowned upon. And really for us, that was kind of like one opportunity to have a lack of control, because you can run around a garden and you can get dirty and you can be outside. And it's the one thing we probably enjoyed, even though it was labor. Right. So the sixth thing, and you will identify with this if you're older, are the literature sales by going door to door. So you mentioned before that there was printing of the Awake magazine in New York. And other countries, and the Watchtower, and hundreds of other pieces of literature that we used to buy and we used to sell for the Watchtower, which is the head office of the Jehovah's Witnesses, at a profit for them.
Yeah, and let me add, if I may, because I make a big deal about legitimate religions don't lie when they're recruiting people. And so I insist that legitimate religions give informed consent to newcomers that they're trying to recruit. And when the witnesses would go door to door and offer to study the Bible, they would not disclose that they have their own translation called the New World Translation, that every Christian theologian and Jewish theologian has said, this is not accurate. Nobody uses this except the group.
Yes.
So they're deceiving people by offering to study the Bible, because it ain't the same Bible.
And in their defense, we didn't know. They don't know. Right?
No, right. But the point is the public needs to understand this is a systematic social influence authoritarian cult. that's defrauding people into them. And they make millions and millions of dollars.
Billions. Yeah. It's kind of like selling Coca-Cola from door to door and saying there's no sugar in it, but there's sucrose, but you don't know that sucrose is a sugar. It's kind of like that.
I think it's worse than that, because
Yeah.
I think religion has a higher standard of, it should have a higher standard of truthfulness and integrity than a product. So it bothers me a lot more than the fact that corporations have a lot of names for bad things that are bad for your body. We only have about 5-10 minutes left, so let's make sure to cover the important points you want to make.
So the sixth point is the literature sales from
right.
going from door to door, called witnessing. But
Right.
the seventh point is also an aspect of witnessing, and that's, as you just described, deceptive recruitment to attract new members by proselytizing constantly. I mean, constantly, at school, at the neighbors, at the shops. The mind control is so ingrained that you eat, breathe, and live it through your nightmares, through your night terrors. Now, the eighth thing, which is the last point here, is training in the above 7 types of labor.
Sure.
And the amount of time we spend training in it is probably more than the actual labor. But it's just a lifetime. And once you're baptized, you're signed up, not for 1 billion years, but forever.
The billion years is a reference to the Scientologists' Sea Org. Yeah. And there was another category we want to quickly cover as we wrap up.
Yes, I would like to. So the thing that I was interviewed very, very early on, like a decade ago, and somebody said to me, what makes them different? And I made a list of 10 things. So let's talk about them compared to, say, the Catholics, or because for some reason, they hate the Catholics. I find them normal people for the most part. 1, restricted democratic rights. 2, the child custody and parenting orders and the way that they manipulate those, which we discussed earlier.
Yep.
3, the lack of education, which has recently changed, as we said. 4, the high incidence of domestic violence, and you would have heard about this, and suicide. Yeah.
Well, let me interrupt for a second, because my recollection is that witnesses have a higher percentage of mental health issues, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, not recognizing people on the autism spectrum and getting them specialized treatment. So I just wanted to add that into the mental health criteria you just added.
I haven't met a Jehovah's Witness or a former Jehovah's Witness that hasn't had mental health care issues. And you can read more about that in the Victorian Inquiry, because they've already released some preliminary data. So you can go to there and have a look at that today. So the 5th one is obviously handling and responses to child sexual abuse. It's changing glacially, but not quick enough, and they're going to have another generation of damaged children because they haven't effectively changed. 6 is the modern slavery that I've just described. That doesn't happen to the extent that it does to us, including forced labor and the trafficking, like the children of God that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen to that extent in other religions. Number 7 is the financial fraud that I described earlier, selling off kingdom halls. And I'll just quickly interlude with how they did that. You may have heard this before, but if you haven't, it's really important. They held votes. I know about the Western countries. I'm not sure about the global reach, but they held coercive votes, I allege, in congregations in countries like yours and mine and the UK, to sell off to change the deed of the Kingdom Hall from the congregations that built them and move the asset into head office. And they went around and, I hate to use the word, but religiously got everyone to vote to that.
Right.
The people that went against that were immediately disfellowshipped, like entire congregations left in a day. Have you heard of that, Steve?
No.
Yeah. And then what they started doing was merging congregations, and then they'd sell off one of the two kingdom halls, or they'd
To make money.
Yeah. And merge three.
Because the world's ending. God needs money because the world's ending, obviously.
Well, we've uncovered billions. Not only
billions with a B.
Billions. And we have a database that you can access and show you. I think it was 27 or 29 countries where we uncovered hundreds of kingdom halls and convention halls and assembly halls, or convention sites and assembly halls, and also other land that was sold off. And we allege for profit. We also alleged, as I mentioned earlier, that the magazines were sold for profit. And you can see that on a website called jwfacts.org, run by Paul Grundy, another Australian.
I know Paul, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I want to add, I interviewed Isaac Carminani about how they were getting people to sign their houses over to the Watchtower Society rather than deeding it to their children as an inheritance. That was another fraudulent, bogus thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, that happened to me in London, actually. I was attending a protest in London, and I was one of the co-organisers of it. I think it was 2019, 17. And it was the biggest former Jehovah's Witness protest that had been held. We had people from something like 12 countries come. And on the way there, I went past, what's it called? There's a park, Hyde Park. Where they have something called Speaker's Corner.
And I've been there.
Yes.
And I spoke. I just for the hell of it.
Me too, just because I'm a woman and I wasn't allowed to.
Right.
So my friend said, you should speak. So I held up the Australian flag and I read the Royal Commission, and someone walked past and he said, did you say the Jehovah's Witnesses? And I said, yes, I did. And he goes, can I talk to you after you finished? And I said, let's talk because I've got to get to the protest. So on the way to the protest, he told me how his mother was being coerced by the elder to reverse mortgage her house.
Yeah.
That was the first I've heard of it. This is only the second time I've heard of that. So thank you again for telling me.
Yeah.
So that's what I allege to be some of the financial fraud. The eighth thing of the list of things that I think makes them different is reproductive coercion. I don't think that's been discussed much in interviews like this. Reproductive coercion is basically where someone coerces you to have a child.
Yeah.
Or become pregnant without you knowing. That's a whole other topic for another time. And number 9 is to be disfellowshipped or disassociate yourself and then be shunned. And it's not like others. It's really extreme. It's not just shunning. It's extreme shunning. It's now been, I think I said, a third of a century. And for something that wasn't a crime, my entire Jehovah's Witness family will not speak to me. I've called out to each of them, and none of them who are current Jehovah's Witnesses will speak to me. And that was a decade ago that I reached out.
And they want to, I bet, but they'll be kicked out, and then they'll lose all their other family and friends, and people will lose jobs in many cases. So the social control aspects is very powerful, and it's evil.
Yes, and I think one of the reasons why the Norway case appeal might have failed. I mean, I wasn't there, and I have read a lot of the information because I follow Jan, who was the primary in with the government. I think the only issue was that they didn't have the data, but we have the data now. But when that started, they may not have had the evidence.
I see.
We can now offer. I think together we could really help future cases.
Yeah, I want to thank you for so many years of helping others. It's really invaluable. It's long overdue that we meet and talk, and we can certainly do it again. But I want to do a shout out to you and other survivors who don't just leave, but they want to help their family and friends who are still in, but also warn everyone else, stay away from groups like these. Like, really put your antenna up that nice smiling people talking good values may have another agenda because they've been told to lie, or theocratic warfare is the Watchtower term. And legitimate religions tell you up front who they are, what they believe, what to expect. You're allowed to question. You're allowed to visit other churches. You're allowed to talk to ex-members. You know, they don't do the bite model of authoritarian control. And
the final thing, Steve, is number 10. Sorry.
Okay.
I know I didn't tell you how many there were, but number 10 is endogamy. When I raised this topic good, you didn't know. So it's
No, what is that?
New thing you'll be interested in. So I raised this at the Decult conference, and Dr. Yanya Lalich was there, and she said, I've never heard of this before. So I thought I must tell more people. So endogamy basically means that you need to intermarry. It's not,
You have to marry a member of the same group. Yeah, the Moonies are the same and the Mormons are the same.
That's what makes cults different to a religion, I think.
Interesting. How do you spell that? Do you know?
Endogamy is ENDOMAGY, endogamy.
Okay. I love learning new things. This is great. And you mentioned Decult. They didn't invite me to speak the first time. They said they'd invite me the second time. They didn't. And I'm just like curious what the heck's going on. But I'm so busy. It's just fine with me.
Melbourne's
Anyway,
only 3 hours away, so you could always pop over there.
Well, Lara Kaput, thank you for being you, and thank you for sharing so much. And when we put this out, we'll have a blog and we'll add all these links so you can start preparing them all. When we send you the draft for your review, you can add all of those things in. And let's stay in touch.
Thank you for protecting children.
Yeah. Oh, and I want to add one last thing while I have you. I'm doing a follow-up study to my doctoral dissertation at bitemodel.com. We have 2 surveys that are scientifically developed, a 20 question and a 40 question, where you measure how authoritarian whatever you're measuring is. And it will give you a number on the influence continuum. And I'd love to have 100, 200 ex-witnesses fill it out, because then we can write it up as a scientific survey that it's an 8 or a 9 out of 10 on authoritarian control.
That would be great. I know someone who did a similar thing, but probably not scientific. So, yeah.
No, I want to change the law. That's the goal, is to create a very scientific model that can be applied to anything that's fair and just. And ideally will not just be self-reports from ex-members, but that will measure the actual policies and we can give a number of authoritarian control. So, yeah, absolutely. It's also very fulfilling work to know that we're helping make a difference in people's lives. So thank you, Lara. Take care.
Thanks.